Hello, ladies. Good Monday morning, afternoon, depending on where you are. We hope you've had a wonderful weekend. We are closing in on the end of the year. Lots of fun stuff happening in California and in Michigan as we get closer to changes in our legislation. And today we're going to be talking about marketing, and we're going to find out if any of those emergency regulations in either state have been released and contain marketing information that we need to know. So today we have a very special guest, Kendra Lucy. She is the CEO of Moto Marketing in San Diego. Welcome, Kendra.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. And as always, my lovely co-host and producer, Jamie Cooper, is on today. Welcome back, Jamie. It's been a while since you and I have had a chance to do a Mentor Monday together. I'm really happy to have you back.
Yes, it has. It's it's even the week that our state starts taking applications. Friday.
How exciting! A lot of great stuff going on. This is a really exciting time of year to be in the cannabis industry, or right now at the end of 2017 going into 2018. So ladies, I encourage you, please, we've got 3 marketing experts on today. So if you have questions about marketing, social media, packaging, whatever it is that may relate in any way to cannabis marketing, please take advantage of having all 3 of us on today and ask your questions. We will be stopping at around the 12:30 mark to check in and see if you have any questions. Okay, so let's get started. So before we came on, we were talking about some changes that have come out in the emergency regulations. And Jamie, you started to say something about what was going on in Michigan. So let's just dive in right there, and then we're going to wrap Kendra in and bring in what's going on here in California.
Well, here in Michigan, they released the emergency regulations last week, and 2 weeks later than they said that they would. Plus, there was like the craziness of them being leaked beforehand. So it's been really busy. This past weekend, I hosted a workshop, a licensing boot camp, a 2-day boot camp on Friday and Saturday. People are eager to learn. They want to know exactly what these new rules mean for them and how they need to move forward, because, I mean, it takes like 40 to 50 partners, or providers, service providers, to support one licensed business. I mean, these businesses are very hard to build, and it's because we have to, abide by all these regulations and guidelines, and marketing is one of them. And Kendra and I were talking, and Kira and I were talking before the broadcast, and marketing is a little bit more broad, the regulations in Michigan, than it is in California. So, Kendra.
Yeah, I was just saying that in California, with some of the marketing regulations, not only are there the requirements on the packaging that there's a big disclaimer and a lot of extra information that needs to be added to the packaging, there's also this rule that they put into the regulations that any ads that run can only be run in places where there are 76.1% of the people who see the ad are over the age of 21. So any billboards, any print ads, anything that is out in the world in California, you have to have over 76.1% of the people over 21. So I don't know what magic roads they're driving down, but that means some of the billboards need to come down. And for example, you can't have ads or billboards that face other states that can be seen from other states.
Wow.
So the border of Nevada and Oregon and any of those, we can't, even though it's legal in both of those places, you can't have ads that would be seen in those states. So those are just some of the examples of the fun traditional marketing challenges that we're going to certainly have.
And in Michigan, the rule for that, it says marijuana products must not be marketed or advertised to minors age 17 years or younger. Sponsorships targeted to members age 17 years or younger are prohibited. That's it.
That's it.
Right?
We rules in California.
Yeah, well, and the next time someone in Michigan complains, I'm just going to bring up Californians and be like, hey,
Yeah, no, you can't be near a can't be near school. You know, there's the location challenges in terms of where they're finding locations for dispensaries and facilities, but there's also, you know, the limitations around marketing. And there was a while, and thank God it was, you know, put on hold and not killed, because there was a while there was actually a bill in place or an amendment to it. I'm sorry, I'm not the lawyer. To actually not allow any branding of products. So stores and brands wouldn't have been able to actually create that brand and create that image. So that would have killed the entire industry had that passed. So thankfully somebody in Sacramento actually put a stop to that, and they say it's a temporary hold, but hopefully it won't resurface, because that would be completely detrimental. There's no other industry that has there's no other industry that's not allowed to actually brand themselves.
Yeah, that's so wild.
It really is. And, you know, like in Michigan, again, like one thing I do want to talk about, the billboard advertising, because does this mean billboards altogether? Because, like, think if you did an advocacy campaign, there's a lot that we can do our marketing with education. So we could use a billboard to put this really eye-opening fact. Like, for instance, 25% of opiate addictions, or states with medical marijuana, have a 25% drop in opiate addictions. So different things like that, use that as branding and tactics on billboards, opposed to having a picture of your product.
Well, in Oregon, and if anybody is listening from Oregon and I'm wrong, please correct me. But my understanding is, and when I was there, I did see this. You have a billboard for a dispensary, and then right behind it, you have an anti-drug campaign billboard. Oh. So wherever you have one, you also have to have the other. So it's, here, come to this dispensary, and then, you know, don't do drugs or you'll drop out of school and your life will be ruined forever. So every state, is going to be interesting how every state kind of tries to deal with this. And the issue of not being able to have billboards facing other states. I mean, is there even a billboard that faces another state anywhere? It's not like California's borders are just, you know, like in the South, where you don't even realize you've crossed over into another state. Like, it's just it's so bizarre.
Oh, you're on mute.
I am?
No, Kendra.
Kendra is. Still on mute.
Oh no.
Technology is hard.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. No, what I was saying is, I think that when you get to California and Nevada, there's a lot of billboards that go to highlight the casinos. So, and now you're leaving Nevada. So I think that border is actually pretty similar. The one that I'm curious about, and I haven't had a chance to talk to any lawyers about this, is we have radio stations that are based in Mexico, but they play here. So who's the FCC ruling? Because right now I hear ads for dispensaries and hydroponics and stuff like that on those, but they're based in Mexico, so they're adhering to the Mexican laws. So it'll be interesting to see if that works, and if so, you know, where is that gray line, and how does that translate into the same California laws?
You know, and I wonder if it's happening as well in Oregon, you know, in the border cities around the Northern California too.
Yeah, right? I have no idea. We'll find out.
Well, you know what? Here in Michigan, we can go ahead and market to Indiana if we want, okay?
Oh, I'm sure they love that. Now, that's interesting because I know in Oregon and Washington, they're not necessarily like hardcore on their borders, because now all three states have rec legal, right? But I know that in states like Michigan, with surrounding states like Indiana, which are severely opposed, that they're going to probably be setting up patrols and nailing people with Michigan plates and that kind of thing. We were talking about that last week. So it's going to be a lot more troublesome for states like yours in Michigan that are surrounded by unfriendly, hostile states.
It really is. It really is. You know, and thankfully we have Ohio that has kind of adapted. They have a new medical program that they're launching, and you know, and I think India, I just can't wait till we see all of America being okay with medical marijuana, at least, you know.
Well, Indiana is still not okay with the time changes. So I feel like
Indiana elected Pence.
and I'm not picking on Indiana. I actually went to grad school there, but I was constantly made fun of as being one of those liberal Californians the whole time I was there. So it's a little retribution, but at the same time, if you're from Indiana, I'm not picking on you. I've been there. I feel your pain. I was made fun of nonstop, but it's crazy. It is crazy there.
It is.
Well, Kendra, I wanted to ask you about a recent appearance that you had on the AMA, the American Marketing Association podcast. They invited you and Ronnie Setter to come on and talk about cannabis in marketing and PR. So why don't you fill us in on what that was all about? What did you talk about? What did they want to know? What did they want to hear?
Actually, it was really fun. We barely finished before I was asking when I could come back. So I've been actively involved in the American Marketing Association on and off throughout my career. I won a national award through them for higher education marketing. And so, yeah, exactly. So that was awesome. And so I've been involved and done a lot of volunteering with the local chapter. And that's one of the things is that in talking to the people on the board who run the podcast and the rest of the team there, I started talking about what I was doing, and they immediately, because they recognize that with the legalization of adult use coming in January in California, that it's a topic that a lot of people are asking about. So they invited Ronnie and myself to go on and talk about the different things. So we were talking about the lay of the land in terms of what that looks like, what rec use means versus medical use, what that means to San Diego, what that means from a marketing perspective, where the perceptions are starting to shift. But it was a great opportunity to be able to reach people outside of the cannabis community. So to get some of these same things across when it comes to normalizing what's there.
So how does the AMA feel about cannabis? Are they skeptical? Are they trying to poke holes in it? Are they excited and trying to find a way in? What's the general attitude?
So it's only the San Diego chapter that I've been talking to lately. I haven't done anything with the national chapter since I moved out of higher education a few years ago. So from the local chapter, they were really excited about it. They were excited for new information for a new market. And they said that they've been getting a lot of questions about cannabis and when they were going to have weed people on the show. And it was very tongue in cheek. It was a great, they were more curious and excited than anything. So there was absolutely no poking holes, no negative stereotypes. It was all very open, fun conversation.
So what was your intention in doing this? Because we've got kind of a branding and marketing issue as an industry and how the mainstream perceives what's going on here. So talk to me a little bit about kind of what your agenda is in talking to people like the AMA and getting out into the mainstream and talking with traditional marketing agencies. What is your motivation behind doing that? And what are you finding you're finding out there as the reception you're getting as you try and take this more into the mainstream, this conversation?
Absolutely. So I feel like the cannabis community is really strong and filled with a lot of amazing people. And then there's almost the next layer of people who are open to the idea and are potential clients and customers and who are curious about what's happening. And they're not necessarily in the cannabis industry, but they're in more mainstream industries. They're, in marketing and traditional agencies, as you mentioned, businesses around the county, at least in San Diego, the people I've been talking to. And so I've been trying to get out in front of them because as almost like a representative of the cannabis industry, because I'm not necessarily what they expect, right? They don't necessarily expect someone who was a VP of marketing at a large education institution at a university to now be talking to them about cannabis marketing, where it makes sense in my mind, because in my mind, it's all about helping people, whether it's through education or through health and wellness. But in their mind, I went from being in a very traditional, one of the most traditional industries, to talking about cannabis. And so, and I have my MBA and all of those things. So I think that me getting in front of them helps legitimize and crush some of the stereotypes they might have had about people in the industry.
And so what is this going to lead to? If we can kind of change the opinion by showing up and having these conversations, how do you think that's going to change their opinion, and how is that going to benefit the industry in the long run? If let's say the person you're talking to isn't necessarily interested in getting involved in cannabis themselves, but where can this information campaign go, and how is it going to benefit the industry?
So in my opinion, I feel like when I go out and talk to people, it's crushing those stereotypes, right? It's changing their perception of people in the cannabis industry. When I mentioned that I went to the marijuana business conference in Vegas, some people laugh, some people ask questions, and, some people, with the laughing comes a lot of, pothead jokes and stoner jokes. And so when I explained to them, and I, took some pictures of people on the floor and talked to them about what we've been doing and what we've all been trying to do, that I find that they're more open. So I'm not necessarily trying to convince people to try cannabis. I'm not necessarily, if they're not already, and most people are, I think, closet smokers. So I'm not trying to get them to change what they're doing or change their behavior. I'm trying to get them to change their opinion. So it's changing that perspective of automatically assuming that if someone uses cannabis, they're, on the couch, that whole stereotype we've all seen a million times, because that's not true. And it's opening but a lot of people haven't had exposure to anything but that. So it's working on changing that opinion in places where, like you were saying, like, we need to get that out there, because that's the only way that all the states are going to start changing their opinion and changing their laws.
So it seems to me that there's a lot of responsibility that kind of lays on the ancillary services, right? So the people who work in accounting, the legal, the law firms, the lawyers, the CPAs, the marketing individuals, the packaging people, that all of us that are coming from traditional businesses have a sense of responsibility to turn around and talk with our former colleagues and to let them know that this really is a legitimate industry. It's helping people, it's moving the ball forward. How can we enlist them from outside of the industry to help? What can we ask people to do once they understand better, short of getting involved in the industry, to help change that perception on the outside?
Oh, that's a great question. Let me think about that. It's starting those conversations and helping them, support them in having those conversations as well, right? So part of it is putting almost a more professional foot forward. For me, at least, this is how I approach it in the beginning, because image is, what their perception is reality, right? So if they're looking for someone who, I'm hiding depending on who I'm talking to, I'll hide my tattoos, I'll, do some of these things to really put that most professional foot forward, because I want to be the exact opposite of what they expect. Now, in terms of taking that a step further, to your point of what can these conversations do, that's a really good question. And I think it's something that I need to give a little more thought to as well, in terms of, we can have these conversations, can help them open their eyes, and hopefully that'll spark conversations with them, because it's almost, it goes back to changing that perception. And I'm just one person, so it's finding ways to amplify those changes and how we can, as an overall group, impact the overall perception of cannabis and the people in it.
So by all of us behaving in a very professional manner, dressing professionally, understanding the audience that we have in front of us, and kind of meeting them where they are, we can really start to build more inroads. Because you're right, image is everything. And if I show up and I smell like weed and, I've got holes in my jeans or whatever, it's going to give a very different image than if I show up in heels with full face of makeup and,
And you can do that and still have fun too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely, like, I'm not eager to pull out my suits that I had to wear to the university job every single day for 8 years. I'm in no hurry to bust those out. Like, I was really happy when I didn't have to wear those anymore and went to an agency. But at the same time, it does actually help with an image standpoint, and people do take me a lot more seriously. They know where, people who know me know where I've come from. They know what I've done. And so they're more apt to be open to listen to what I have to say now. And then when you get to the people that don't know me, I go back to, and I tell this to a lot of my marketing students, is that perception's reality. So whether it's from a personal brand standpoint or your company brand standpoint, what you're putting out there is what people are going to see, and they're going to take it in based on their frame of reference, not necessarily the one you intended it.
That's a really good point. And I think it's something that, you know, in my past, I wanted people to accept me for the way that I was. And I didn't want to have to kind of change who I was to fit someone else's idea of what was okay. But the reality is we have an agenda we want to move forward. And we can't do that by forcing what we want on other people. We have to kind of meet them where we're at and show our belly a little bit, say, hey, you know, look here, we are working this way. We are professionals. We are a legitimate industry. There are good things that happen here, but we have to lead with that professional foot. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, even when we don't want to.
We don't want to, yes. And it can be hard. And a lot of us are grounded in the way that things have been. So, all right, I don't want to hammer that to death. I want to actually get into some conversation around creativity and marketing, because this really is the hardest thing that we have to face in this industry as business owners. So I was talking, who was I talking with over the weekend about our marketing regulations being so severe that it's, oh, I know who it was. It was someone we were talking to last week on Mentor Monday about the fact that we cannot talk about any benefits. And it is so rigid. It was, we were talking with Colette, Florida. She has CR World. It's a hemp CBD company. And it's an MLM company. And so she's got all of these individuals who are actually her salespeople that she has to train. You cannot talk about anything anecdotal. You can't make any claims about health benefits. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we're just locked into this tiny little corner. We can't talk about anything. We can't advertise on Facebook. We can't show too much or we'll get our Facebook page shut down. Companies like Massroots are not providing the resources and the ability to communicate openly that we were hoping that it would. So where does this leave us as brands wanting to market our product? What are you doing with your clients, Kendra, to address these issues? And maybe you can share some of the creative ways you've come up with getting around these issues.
Absolutely. And I think that, you know, those challenges are always there. And it's something that when I was in education, we could never promise the job at the end or that you would absolutely graduate or what the outcome would be. But this is an entirely different level of challenges, right? When you look at, we can't say any of the benefits. That's entirely different. So for me, there's a couple long tail things that I've worked on with clients in terms of, you know, different, like just an example would be, and it's not terribly creative, but it's more like trying to figure out how to get around some of the stuff. So one of the things that I worked on with a client is looking at, here's 10 ways to solve chronic pain, or 10 ideas to solve chronic pain. And one, you know, so is submit your email address or what have you to get this, to download this article or this resource. And one of the ways in there was cannabis. And each one had links to more information about it. So then it was, you know, it was like 2 or 3 steps away, because then you could advertise on Facebook. Then you could get around some of these different things in order to be able to get the word out. But once again, it's such a long tail of what that process looks like. It's not the most direct thing I've done, but it's something that I'm testing now to try and figure out if that angle and moving things farther down the funnel or down the, you know, would work. So it's just starting at a different level and then trying to back into it. So stuff like that is kind of the angle I've been trying to take in terms of the creative approach, because when you start looking at the limitations, trying to blending in some of the benefits or grouping the benefits with something else is really how I've been trying to get around it.
So walk me through what it's like to work with you and how you help your clients solve some of these problems. So I come to you, I'm an edible product. I have just barely started my branding. I'm just at those beginning phases. What do you do with me? And how do you guide me through this process to get me all the things I need? So talk to me about all the things that you provide, from packaging to content and everything in between.
Okay, great. So first off, I'm big on the strategy and the setup. So putting together the marketing plan, if there isn't one already, and understanding, interviewing those customers to figure out what the key points are that they're looking for in a brand and what they want, and getting that feedback, because then you can speak back to them in the language and the words they used, which is really, really important. And then also being able to understand what they're paying attention to. Are they paying attention to Facebook, or are they paying more attention to Leafly? Are they paying attention to, what platforms and where are they getting that information? It becomes really important. So understanding what that looks like, and then putting together the journey of how they start out, from if they're going to be, awareness and what they're going to get and what that looks like, and then how they purchase. And then once they purchase, what that looks like. So part of where I started my career was working with customer relationship management companies and doing loyalty and engagement programs with those companies. So that's something that I'm been dusting off and looking at, because it's extremely important in this industry, is not just understanding how to bring people in, but how to keep people and what they're looking like. And that's part of what those interviews do, because it helps tell you what people are paying attention to. If you're talking to people and if you are a dispensary, or if you're a product brand and people are just looking for the best price or what have you, that's not necessarily going to be your target, because you're not going to be able to grow them and get repeat business from them. It's finding those trigger points from a psychological standpoint of what's going to keep people coming back to you once you get them in the door. The stat is it's $5 or $8, it keeps changing, more expensive to bring in new clients than to keep them. So, it's not just from a product branding standpoint of getting people to purchase, it's getting them all the way through and keeping them. So when you ask what I do for people, it's putting that strategy in place and putting those programs in place and identifying the needs and the opportunities. The other thing that I have found in working with clients is that and it's not a bad thing, but a lot of people come in and only have experience in digital, or only have experience in social, or only have experience with events. And one thing that I've been very fortunate in my career to be able to do is manage the whole process and manage all the different pieces and see how they interact and which dials and levers you can pull if you're trying to get brand awareness, or if you're trying to get leads, or trying to get customers, or trying to get sales. So understanding from a higher level what that looks like, and then bringing in the right people to fulfill. So if you need packaging, or if you need content marketing, or if you need a CRM tool, knowing the different resources that are available to bring in to actually help implement that.
And what's a CRM for those who don't know?
A customer relationship management software.
And what are our options in this industry? Are there any CRMs that are built specifically for cannabis that can help us address some of these issues we're facing?
Absolutely. So there's quite a few. Baker Technology seems to be the biggest one, and they've done great work in terms of their technology. There's a few others, and I know they start with green, but that's actually probably part of the problem with me.
How many times have we talked about that?
Is that I'm like, I know it, and it's not Green Rope, because that's my friend's CRM company, but there's quite a few others, and I even spoke to some of the people at MJ BizCon, and I could not remember them because the names were a little too similar. So props to Baker, because I remember it every single time.
Right on.
Dave, do you know others that you've worked with or used?
No, not at all. I've been using mainstream type things, but so my concentration is I love what you were just talking about, like the way we build trust and keep customers is educating them. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's where this industry is really dropping the ball, because people are hungry. Like the place that they are going to get educated to learn about cannabis, because they're too afraid to ask it with their voices, right, is online. And so there's such a huge opportunity. And I don't know if we need to slap some of these business owners in the face or what, but there's so much opportunity, and I really don't see enough of these businesses doing that.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something I think I mentioned to Kira. I've started working with a friend of mine that I used to work with in education who created an app for restaurants to engage with them for loyalty. And so he's creating a pilot for me for a dispensary to be able to look at that loyalty. So it's not just getting text messages of, hey, this is on sale. Hey, we've got this sale, but actually building that relationship and making it smarter. So from the loyalty app, it's in the beginning stages. So I'm not sure if that technology is going to be there, but I think that's also where Baker's going to, is to be able to build those in. And having the technology isn't going to do it. You need to have the plan around it and the strategy around it as well in order to really engage and understand what customers need. There is a book called The Wow Factor, and I'll be completely upfront, I haven't read it, but it goes back to the same philosophy of what we used to talk about a long time ago when it came to loyalty, is that being able to surprise and delight people or wow them with something unexpected and extraordinary is what is also going to help build that relationship and build that loyalty. So it's building the trust, but also in that trust, showing that you know what they want, that you know what they like, and using that information, not just asking it and throwing it somewhere and letting it sit, but actually using it to do something useful and build that relationship over time.
And another thing I wanted to talk about today too was, one of my favorite things to kind of see evolve is the marketing of the actual growers, the people who are making the medicine. And it's going to be exciting to kind of watch that evolve over the next 5-10 years, because we're not marketing growers of tomatoes when we go to the grocery store, really. So this is something that is really new, but it's needed, because I think there are growers that are highly sought after,
Absolutely.
And so, have you seen any or do you have anything that you can recommend to these growers to start marketing themselves? Because I feel like if they start working on their individual brand right now, that's going to work out really well for them in the long run, because it's going to get competitive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that, it's building, to your point, it's building that personal brand. And there is nothing, you can go in and build your personal brand and create your professional profile page on Facebook and, slap up a website that talks about what you do. But you also need to start sharing that information too, and having other people, more importantly, having other people share your information and say good things about you, because that's where you're going to really build that credibility. But, putting that stake in the ground today and building your brand as a grower, or, whatever your role is, you're absolutely right. They're going to have to learn to differentiate themselves and really highlight themselves in a different way that they haven't had to do before.
Which is kind of what we see in the brewery industry too. These small brewers trying to compete with the Budweisers and stuff,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And breweries do not have any budget for marketing. Let me tell you. San Diego
Most companies don't.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Most companies find themselves without much of a budget for marketing, unfortunately.
That's true.
I want to put a pin in this real quick and ask, do we have any questions? And then we can get right back to this.
Let me check. We do not have any questions. It looks like we are good.
Okay. So, I think it's a really interesting conversation around marketing with the growers, because, I had a guy call me and want to talk to me about helping brand and market his grow operation, but he only wanted to communicate with me through text.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the unfortunate thing is that we have a lot of growers who've been doing it for a very long time. They've actually been pioneering the industry and where we are today in terms of our legal status, and they're going to become obsolete. They're going to be taken over. They're going to fall behind because they don't have the marketing and branding in place to actually compete in the modern landscape. And it's really sad. And I wish that there were more growers who understood the need and the importance of that, because, you know, you're right. There are a lot of other industries where you don't have the growers actually, you know, with tomatoes, you don't really get a lot of marketing from the actual growers. My husband works in the industry of commercial agriculture, and only when you're a massive, massive company, and then you don't become brand loyal. You don't choose a Lakeside over an Earthbound because, you know, you like their lettuce better. It's kind of who's on sale, who's nearest, and who's available in the store. But when you're talking about cannabis, we're talking about different strains. We're talking about hybrid, we're talking about breeders who are going to be doing one special strain that is, you know, extremely valuable. So there is a really strong need for this separation as we become more refined, as we start to become more like sommeliers, you know, who have a real distinct palate for a certain type of strain from a certain region, grown indoors, grown outdoors. So what can we do to help these growers? How do we get them to kind of understand? Go ahead, Jamie.
You know how you do it is when you are a grower, you produce content for your dispensaries that you're selling your product to.
Oh,
you need to take on that responsibility of producing these things that can be given to customers so they come back to the dispensary asking for your product.
I think the challenge with that is that a lot of people, and maybe I haven't talked to as many growers as I would like to be able to sound more educated on this answer, but a lot of, you know, and I've been in marketing for over 20 years though. So I can tell you that a lot of people in different industries aren't on the computer. It scares them. They're not used to, you know, they're better at working with their hands than on the computer and coming up with ideas that way. So it's almost like you need someone who can, you know, as a grower, you need a content person who can interview you, write it up, send it out. So that way you don't have to do it all yourself. And that way you can take that fear off and eliminate one of the boundaries that that people put on themselves in order to get that yes versus no to do just exactly what you were talking about.
Yes. And, you know, create like these materials, flyers, posters that can be hung up in the dispensary that have a lot of education behind them, and, you know, build that brand. And like we were talking about earlier, the sooner you do it, the better, because I would hate for you to get 2 years from now, go, God, I should have started marketing like Jamie, Kira, and Kendra started telling me to do 2 years ago. So,
and you could even do something along the lines of YouTube videos, right? So take a video and talk about what, you know, turn on your camera, talk about what you're doing, what you're growing, the why you're doing it, and getting those pieces in place. One of the things I just launched I'm doing a social media course for women entrepreneurs before I launch the one for cannabis entrepreneurs. And absolutely one of the most important things people need to understand and be able to communicate out is why you're doing it. You know, what's that passion? What's that driver? What's that benefit for people? And then you can go into the how and the what you're doing. But it's putting that why first and leading with your story and leading with what you're doing and why you're doing. After that, then going into the what and why. And, you know, you guys have done a great job with that, with the Be Brave for Cannabis campaign and having people share their stories. And it's exactly where it starts. And as a grower, you know, you might be afraid of, or not be afraid of, but, you know, have some reluctance to using the computer all the time or spending that time doing content, but there's no reason why you can't turn on the camera on your phone and start telling people why, and start telling people what you're doing, and really start growing your brand that way.
Well, you know, I wonder too if you've come up against this, because everything is so hyper local. So, you know, traditionally we would get a consumer goods client and they're a national company. We don't have to deal with the fact that we're actually only targeting a very small region. So, you know, a lot of these edible companies, they may not even extend, you know, all across the state. You know, you've got San Diego and maybe LA County. So how do you address the fact that you're having to deal with so many hyper local businesses now, which is not something we've traditionally had to deal with in terms of being a marketing expert with an MBA and an agency, and you know, we've taken on much bigger clients, and now we're really looking at this hyper localization, and yet trying to build a brand at the same time that is well recognized and part of rebranding the whole industry nationwide. So it's kind of an interesting soup. How do you deal with that with your customers, your clients?
So I think that, for me, and Jamie can answer that too, is really looking at a local plan, right? What is the most important things from a local perspective, and really putting that in place, whether it's search engine optimization, making sure you're on the local directories, making sure you're accessible. So if people are doing the searches and looking to find any information, they can.
So can I hold you for 1 second, Kendra? Let me ask you about search engine optimization, because I think that this is something that is actually a great benefit. We can utilize that with no restrictions whatsoever, search engine optimization. But I don't hear it talked about very often. I wonder if even many cannabis companies know what it is, but it actually is probably the best tool that we have in our marketing arsenal that no one really knows about.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I've met recently, I'm meeting with her tomorrow, Chelsea Motor, who specializes in search engine optimization.
I need to have her on, yeah.
And is specializing in, absolutely you should. And is specializing in cannabis search engine optimization. And, no matter where I'm at, I always try and look at search engine optimization as one of the foundations. So even looking at industries that don't have all these requirements and restrictions around them, search engine optimization it's not free because it's complicated and there's a lot that goes into it. But at the same time, there's no restrictions around it. And if you can find the right niche, and if you can find those long tail words that people are searching for, or those search phrases that people are searching for, you can actually get powerful results with them. It's the thing with search engine optimization, though, is it doesn't happen overnight. Search engine optimization takes a minimum of 3 to 6 months typically to really show good, solid results consistently. But over time, it's by far one of the better things. And you're right. I hear about social media. I hear about content marketing and inbound and, where paid ads, and it's too bad we can't do these things, but really focusing on the things we can do, I think is really important, and taking advantage of those and really blasting those as much as we can, because that's where we have more free reign and that's where we can have more power.
So instead of looking at a cannabis business's budget as, really heavy in content development and ad strategy, maybe shifting some of that budget over to search engine optimization as the big lead, because there's a ton of freedom there. Yeah. And there's not a lot of competition because most cannabis businesses aren't utilizing it.
Absolutely. And content marketing is part of, it definitely impacts search engine optimization, and it's a very critical part of search engine optimization. Yes, but you need to be creating content that people are looking for, not just content because you think it's good.
And so a good search engine optimization individual can help you really identify what those are. Okay, Chelsea, if you're listening, we need to get you on for a conversation ASAP. Okay, Kendra, sorry, go back on your train of thought. It's not a conversation we have enough of, and I just kind of wanted to highlight that today.
No, absolutely. And I'll get Chelsea on. I'm talking to her tomorrow. So sorry, I forgot my train of thought.
We were talking about the different ways that you work with a client and kind of the different steps that you evaluate in their process.
Okay, yeah. And then we went from there to the local focus.
Yes.
So in terms of looking locally, there's, it's looking at the holistic, it's the same thing, right? Looking at the holistic marketing plan and the budget and understanding the goals and who they're trying to target. And then looking at what, do events work? Are they looking at search engine optimization? Like I said, is always something that I try and lead with because it's so important. And then looking at some of the Facebook and some of the different branding that they'll need and putting that in place. There's an entire event promotion plan that you can put around to make sure that your event is not just a one-time thing for a couple hours, but you can give that a lot of legs, for lack of a better term, to really extend what you do at that event, both leading up to the event and at the event and after the event. And so having those strategies in place and some of those different components really help from a local standpoint. Being involved in the community. Some of these things aren't specifically local, aren't specifically marketing, but being involved and getting out there and understanding that every person who works with you or for you or partners with you is part of extending your brand and your reach and that perception of what your company does.
It's a really good point. I mean, from how your bud tenders are dressed, if you have a dispensary, to the community work that you're doing, how you talk to your neighbors. Are you showing up for cleanup days? All of these things are actually part of marketing, and we don't tend to look at it that way.
And it's even not just that, right? It's your bud tenders when they're off, when they're not working. How are they talking about your company? Are they excited to work there? Are they excited to tell their friends about it? Or is it something that they just do? I think that bud tending is a unique position. So I think most people are really excited to be where they're at, but not always. And it's making sure that you're driving, that loyalty doesn't just extend to your customers. That loyalty is important for your employees as well, because they're your brand ambassadors. All of these people you touch and reach, not physically, but all of these people that you're reaching are all part of they can become brand ambassadors for you. So it's important to keep that in mind when you're out in the community, when you're working with your employees, when you're hiring employees, when you're working on your specific marketing. It's all part of that brand perception.
So it's really important to remember that it isn't just your packaging. It isn't just the ads that you're taking out in a magazine or trying to take out on Facebook. It isn't just the content that you produce. It's everything. It's how you exist in the world, how your brand represents itself in the community, how you treat your employees. And all of these things add up to the big pie of awareness of your brand.
Absolutely. One of the stories that I tell, so I teach periodically. I teach at a local university. I teach marketing, social media, advertising, and some of those different topics. And so one of the stories that I typically use when it comes to brand perception is that, so McDonald's, not to use them as an example, but McDonald's, there's a lot of trash. There's a lot of McDonald's items that are thrown on the ground, right? There's litter everywhere, the cups, all the different pieces, then parts that make up a meal. And one of the things that they did, they realized that people were starting to get a negative perception because they were considering McDonald's trash. Because when people saw trash on the side of the road, in their mind, that was McDonald's equals trash. And so what they started to do was put on their cups and on some of their products, and I haven't eaten there ever in many, many, many years, so I think it's still there. But they started to put, to place on their packaging, please deposit in trash can, or please deposit litter where it belongs, or whatever the phrase was. And doing that actually started, one, people started doing it a little bit more, but two, it helps separate the perception of it's not McDonald's fault that people are pigs.
Interesting.
And so looking at something, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier in terms of reframing something in people's minds, because McDonald's, they spend $1 bazillion on their branding. Mm-hmm. And here was something that was completely out of their control that they chose to try and change a little bit to try and reframe that perception. And doing little things sometimes can make a big difference. And so it's really important for us to remember that when we're out in the community, when we're working on, for me, working on clients and, the people we come in contact with and the people that we talk to and what we leave behind is all making an impression.
That's a really good point. Mm-hmm. That is a really good point.
Yes, it is. We are making an impression right now. Every single day. And this is still just the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely.
It feels like that we have come a long way, but there's just so much more that's left ahead of us. And those that get into this industry, you have to be comfortable with adapting, because that's what this is about. And I think that's why I love it so much, because every day is a new challenge and is exciting.
A new challenge and a new opportunity.
It really is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. So Kendra, actually, Jamie, do we have any questions?
No, we don't. And to go back, we had a comment about the branding, pretty much the branding of growers. And gosh, I can't get to it, what it says right now. Oh, it says, sounds a bit like the farm-to-table movement in restaurants. The source is identified and celebrated by the restaurant. Customers remember those farmers. I'm like,
Yeah, that's great.
That's so true.
That's a really good point.
So if I were a grower, I would put something cute and memorable that the dispensary can hand along with your product.
Absolutely.
You know, something that just really sets you apart and makes people go, oh, that was really cool. Oh, yeah. I really like this product.
That is a really great tip, Jamie. I back that up 100%. And you know, most people don't expect it now either, because we're in a world where you go, you buy your product, you get your product, you leave, and you don't really know anything about the farm where it came from. Mm-hmm. But if you got a little card in there that said, oh, this was grown outdoors in this area, we don't use pesticides, you know, it's a seed from such and such, here's the effects that we're looking for. If you like that product, you would absolutely go back and say, I want that same thing again from that farm. And it doesn't take a whole lot, just right there, here's some information. So yeah, people want information and they will resonate with it and they will go back for more.
And they want that story, that 100%.
They want the story.
So I have a bunch of random food allergies, right? And there are these cookies that I found that are quinoa cookies, which are more delicious than they sound like they might be. But on the packaging, they have a picture of a little farmer in Peru with his llama and a little story about the Peruvian farmer and his llama and where the quinoa was grown and who it's benefiting. And, you know, it's the free trade, that kind of thing. But it's that story that, you know, I don't buy the cookies very often, but when I do, those are the ones I grab because they've got the little farmer with his llama, and this is where I know who I'm helping, I know who I'm supporting, and I know where it came from. And that is times 10 when you look at the farm to table and that importance of people really caring and wanting to know what, you know, it's just knowing that it was grown with, I don't want to say with love, but with care and with attention, and you're going to get the best that you can from this person.
Well, and the other thing, too, that you've kind of brought up unknowingly is that you're talking about millennials. Yeah. Millennials have changed the way that brands have to market because they want to know. They're demanding to know what is in their products. They want to know who grew it. They want to know that story. And they will make their determinations of loyalty based on those elements. So it's modern marketing to do that. It isn't being brave. It isn't being super creative and unique. It's taking advantage of the opportunity because nobody else is doing it in the industry right now. But it's really how people want to be marketed to today.
Absolutely.
Want to know these things.
And they always say that the stat, I've seen it vary from anywhere from 70% to 80%, somewhere in there. But people buy with their gut. They buy with their feeling and emotion and then justify it with the data or whatever logic they need to. But they're starting out with that emotion. And when you can really hook into that emotion, especially as a grower, like knowing that your hands were in the soil, that knowing that you were working on the plant, knowing that it was being tended to in the best way possible, you really have a great opportunity to separate yourself out and make people know who you are.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So thank you so much, Kendra. This has been it's nice to have a conversation about other things besides packaging and content. But there really is so much more to this than just turning out ads and pretty pictures. There are a lot of other ways that we can address these marketing issues we face as an industry. So before we go, will you please tell us about your brilliant course that you are about to launch? It's free, ladies. If you do not sign up for this course, you have zero excuses about why your marketing is suffering. So Kendra, tell us about this incredible course you're doing.
Absolutely. So right now the application is set to close tomorrow. I'm going to extend it out to January 1st. I am putting together a social media course for cannabis entrepreneurs. So I'm actually running the course right now for just women entrepreneurs without the cannabis focus. So that way I can get that experience and know what's working. And, you know, it's kind of like a pre-beta course for the cannabis group. And then it includes the outcomes and includes putting together your business goals, and driving your strategy from your business goals all the way up to your marketing goals, to your social media goals, to understanding what's going to work and what's not going to work for you when you're looking at social media and really building that brand. So those growers that we were just talking about, this is a good way to start, and it's free. So I'm really excited to offer this up. It's going to be about 3 to 4 weeks long, depending on how long it takes you to get through the material. I'm making the videos right now and going to be putting them on, and it's self-paced, and I'll still be there to answer questions. And once again, I'm really excited to be able to offer this. So take advantage of it, please, because then you can give me feedback and I can make it even better.
Awesome. And you can't beat that free from a woman who has been in marketing for 20 years, has her MBA in marketing. You want the best education, jump on this while it's free. I'm a social media expert, and I think I might even decide to take it. I don't know what you've got to offer in there, Kendra. So thank you so much. And we're gonna put this up with this broadcast with a link to sign up for your
Perfect.
Jamie, do you have any more questions for Kendra?
I don't think so. Thank you so much, Kendra. I really appreciate this conversation. I always love talking about marketing. I could talk forever on it.
No, I was actually just going to say, I really appreciate you guys having me here. I absolutely love talking about marketing, and I get so excited about being able to help people with, I've spent a lot of time and money on learning everything and trying it out and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And so being able to share that information back and be able to help people, especially the women in the audience who can use the help and support. Not everyone has time or interest for an MBA or for all these other marketing courses and things that I've taken along the road. So I love being able to help out when I can and however I can. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you for being here. It's been a really great conversation, and it's wonderful to have such professional women like yourself with such great experience in the industry helping us figure this out as we go along. So thank you so much, Kendra. All right, ladies, that does it for us today on Mentor Monday. We do not have a Founder Friday coming up on Friday, but we will be back. Actually, we will not be back next Monday because I have to be in Baton Rouge. So we will be back, I guess, before Christmas. But we will be reposting some old Mentor Mondays, so you can catch up on those if you have missed them. And I just want to say thank you so much again to my lovely co-host, Jamie, for being with us today and part of this conversation. And a big thank you to Kendra Lucy at Moto Marketing for everything you brought to us today. And we will be posting that link for her social media class. So have a wonderful and productive week, ladies, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.